Thanks for joining us. People on opposite ends of the country are bracing for potentially damaging weather. In California, officials have ordered evacuations for parts of Santa Barbara County. They're worried rain could trigger more mudslides less than 2 months after a massive landslide killed more than 20 people. And along parts of the East Coast, people boarded up windows and filled sandbags. One emergency management official says he expects homes will be lost in a major nor'easter. CBS News weather producer David Parkinson joins me now. David, let's start with the West. What kind of conditions are expected there?
So it is a serious condition only because we had the fires. Now, you might have a little bit of damaging flooding from this storm, but because we had those fires, the soil is all ready to go, and that's what we had in those Montecito landslides, and the table is set for that again. So that's why we have those mandatory evacuations. Here's what's going to happen. Overnight tonight, the rain is really going to pick up and intensify. It's not a long duration event. It's less than 12 hours from start to finish. But in that period of time, the rain is going to come down at incredibly intense rates, and that's where you're going to be having that flooding threat. So you've got a blizzard warning up in the Sierra, and then you've got a flash flood warning, or a flash flood watch, I should say, along the coast. And again, wherever you see that on that map there, those yellows, that's 2 inches of rain. 2 inches of rain in 12 hours is enough to cause things to start coming down. So if you are in that area, while it is still light out, the time is now to move, because by the time we know it's happening, it is too late. And that's what they found out with those Montecito slides.
What about the Northeast? This nor'easter is expected to hit much of that region. What is the timeline of that storm?
So the timeline is beginning now and then continuing through the day on Friday and into Saturday morning. So what do I mean by beginning now? I mean, in Buffalo, it's starting to snow, but that's the western edge of it. The part that we're really concerned about is going to be the coastal flooding and the wind. So to talk about the coastal flooding, here's what's going on. Look at how heavy that rain is right along the New England coast. Look at all the intense moisture that's going to be going for hours and hours and hours. You combine that with the highest tides of the month because you have a full moon, and you combine that with high tides, multiple high tide cycles, so 3 or 4 high tide cycles. It means every successive one is going to build and have more flooding. So anywhere that's shaded in either green or in teal there is under some sort of coastal flood alert, from minor to major flooding. And what we're talking about when we talk about major flooding, we are talking about storm surges of potentially 4 feet on top of the highest high tides of the month. So we're talking about the kind of flooding you could get from a tropical system. So don't be fooled that this is a nor'easter. If you are along the coast in New England, this is a serious threat for you. And we were talking about Situate, we talk about the Seaport District of Boston, Nahant. If you flooded in the bomb cyclone, you will flood again. And if you didn't, but you were close, you'll probably flood. This is a very, very serious coastal flood threat, and I want to make sure that people are not sleeping on it, if you will.
Right. And what about the winds? Can you put in perspective, when you combine what you just spelled out with the water, with the storm surge, with the tides, and you factor into that the winds as well, how harsh could conditions be?
I mean, the winds are going to be something that we are not accustomed to dealing with, especially because it's so long. So here's what's going to be happening. The winds will start in the morning in the D.C. area, 40 to 50 mile an hour gusts, and they'll continue all day long. So this is a problem if you've got a crane, if you've got patio furniture on a balcony, and that continues all the way up the northeast coast. So as we go into the afternoon, then you start talking about the winds ramping up in New York. So you start dealing with flight problems at LaGuardia and Kennedy at Newark, and you have wind gusts of 60 miles an hour, which a lot of things aren't rated for. And then you move up to Boston into the afternoon and evening. You see that little blue along the coast. That includes the city of Boston, a threat for 75 mile an hour winds, also along the south coast onto Cape Cod and the islands. All of those are going to be seeing some serious winds for several hours. So even though they're wind gusts, they'll go up and down. A 75 mile an hour sustained wind is a Category 1 hurricane. So just keep in mind the destructive power, and because it's going on for so long, you really need to take care to secure things now. And also, if you are along the coast and people are saying to evacuate, you should be doing that.
All right, people should not wait. All right, David Parkinson, really critical information. Thanks so much.
Sure thing.